It's dusk when I enter the city limits of Flagstaff, Arizona, and the glowing neon sign that sits on top of the Hotel Monte Vista ushers me through town. Since the 1800s and well past the heyday of Route 66, Flagstaff has been a perfect place to pull up in your horse-drawn wagon, station wagon, or in my case, my 4Runner. And I, like so many travelers before me, am road-weary as I check into my hotel room. I'm Kyle Lamont, and this ConcertCast episode was produced from rooms 205, Michael Stipe's room, and 213, Bing Crosby's room at the Hotel Monte Vista, where from the window of these rooms, I'm able to see another striking marquee in town, that of the Orpheum Theatre, Flagstaff's premier music venue.
We have a big ladder that we have to get up on, like in the old days, and slide the letters in and out to tell you what's coming up.
That's Chris Scully. He's the Orpheum's former manager and co-owner who will be giving us a daytime tour of the venue, and we'll also be hanging out with Lindsay Kaufman, the front desk attendant at the Hotel Monte Vista.
It's kind of an inside joke when I say that I'm just the front desk girl, because I end up doing everything from relaying cocktail recipes to housekeeping and maintenance to telling ghost stories and like a historian. Yeah, all over the place.
I wake up to the downtown sounds of trucks making morning deliveries and to store owners shoveling sidewalks. It's a crisp winter day, and beams of sunlight pass through the blue drapes and fall upon an old candlestick telephone that's mounted on the wall. And as I lay in my cozy warm bed tucked inside of room 213, I can't help but think of Bing Crosby, who once stayed here too. The room is petite and dorm-like, which was the traditional size for people back in the 1920s when the hotel was built. And design-wise, it's modern antique.
They're all decorated completely differently. Everyone's totally quirky. You're not getting this experience you could get anywhere else. There's no cookie cutter, run-of-the-mill anything about it. So that's why I think it's cool. It's such an experience.
Meet Lindsay. She's the front desk clerk and also a local artist who makes analog collages.
When you walk into the room, you can tell that a lot has happened here. You know, there's something that is to be loved about each one. For instance, like the Michael Stipe room, I love that one because you get to look out onto San Francisco Street, really get to peek into the old town from your room.
In the mid-1920s, tourism was on the rise, and local residents agreed that Flagstaff needed first-class accommodations. So in April of 1926, investments of prominent citizens, including the prolific novelist Zane Grey, author of The Purple Sage, who later became a loyal guest, totaled $200,000, and ground was broken just a month later.
Cool little glimpse into the history of the hotel is that the lounge downstairs, which is operating now, is the first speakeasy in Flagstaff. So there's a lot of kind of bootlegging. There's a secret entrance. There's underground tunnels. And so it was shut down a couple years before Prohibition ended, just to reopen and still be serving drinks right now.
What's most fun about the hotel, in my opinion, is how it's like a little museum, because certain rooms are marked with a plaque that have a picture and small description of the famous guest who stayed there. A notable room to me was Mary Costigan's. She was the second woman in the world to be granted a radio broadcasting license. Her first show was broadcasted from backstage at the Majestic Opera House, which is now the Orpheum Theatre, and then she had to move the station to the Hotel Monte Vista, where more than 400 residents showed up for her maiden 100-watt broadcast, which was huge at the time, and she ended up hosting a show for 3 hours each day, right from the hotel. So many celebrities, from Bob Hope to Humphrey Bogart, have stayed at the hotel, and it's even been featured in the movies Casablanca and Forrest Gump. As of recently, Paul McCartney has stayed here when he and his wife Nancy Chevelle road-tripped along Route 66 in 2008. And what's not to love about the proximity to the Orpheum Theatre?
Very often there will be a random weekday, and during a slower season, I'm like, God, why are we sold out on that day? And then I look to see who's playing at the Orpheum, and it's like, oh, no wonder. So that's really exciting too, especially when you get, half or most of the hotel filled up with just fans of this one band or whatever it might be. The last, more popular, well-known name that I can remember that did stay here in the hotel was Elephant Revival. I needed to go up to their room. Might have just been extra pillows or something. I don't remember. But I remember walking into the room and they just had gorgeous instruments like leaning against the walls and things. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. So yeah, meeting people is great. Feeling the history and getting to tell these stories and just being in the middle of it all is so exciting.
After reallocating funds and negotiating with management, what started for me as a 2-night reservation turned into a month-long stay. Why? Because I was deeply inspired here and I instantly felt drawn into the community. In the hotel alone, there's an amazing coffee shop, Thai food restaurant, plus a live music venue in the cocktail bar. So inevitably, there are so many cool people to hang out with.
Everyone wants to have a good time. Everyone wants to have a good stay, but also valuing the community. I think that, just being here, you sense that we're all humans and we all are a little bit rock and roll in our souls in one way or another, but also like peace and rest. And I don't get out much, but when I do go out, this is the only place I really like to hang out. So I feel like that says something too. And I might be just having the new cocktail on the winter menu or whatever it may be, and someone strikes up some conversation, asks me what I do, and I'm like, oh, well, I work here. Yeah, I think it is a point of pride for me. I am really proud of it, and just especially knowing that it's been such a central landmark and such a, have had so much importance and things in the community for so long. It's so cool that I could say, I'm a part of that.
And I quickly realized that whatever was going on in town, the Hotel Monte Vista was where people started and ended their night.
Well, it's always the after party, no matter what you're doing, yeah. If I do happen to be out later and there's some couple making out in the lobby, I'll say jokingly, oh, I'll get a room. And I've actually sold a couple rooms that way, so.
And with almost 100 years of community, music, celebrity, and speakeasy, it's almost as if you can hear the walls themselves whispering their past.
For instance, room 210, the Zane Grey room, John Wayne allegedly saw the Phantom Bellboy outside of his room. And I hear different things from that room all the time, and it's always changing.
But more about the ghost stories later. I need to get out and stretch my legs. I walk out of the lobby and I'm on San Francisco Street. The snow has stopped me in my tracks. I'm stunned at the fact that I'm in Arizona, a state which many think is just cactuses and sunshine. So being around ponderosa pines and 1 foot of snow is a true testament to the dynamic nature of the state's geography. I snap out of it and walk past outdoor apparel stores, a sound healing studio, restaurants, bars, and breweries, and I deliberately walk by Green Room, a club that I've read so much about where you can see all the up-and-comers in town that offer everything from hip-hop, hardcore, punk, and EDM shows. Buskers on corners strum their guitars, and I step into Fire Creek, a coffee shop staple in town with delicious food that doubles as a music venue and listening room at night.
That's where I saw J.J. Cale and Leftover Salmon and Widespread Panic there 25 years ago.
That's Chris Scully again, the co-owner of the Orpheum Theatre. He moved to Flagstaff in the early 90s and tells me that Fire Creek today is the place to go for a new generation of sounds in town.
It's not just, folk music. It's not just rock and roll. It's just a real blend of stuff. They'll start playing the coffee houses, and they'll go to the Green Room or the Flag Brewery, and once they develop enough of an audience, we'll hope to get them in the Orpheum. So it's great to see the young people and all the creative people in Flagstaff creating a new scene.
With coffee in hand, I walk around some more, down old alleyways and along the railroad tracks, and I eventually end up in the parking lot of the Orpheum, in awe of a massive mural that was painted by a college student who crowdsourced the funds needed from the community.
This mural is over 100 feet long and about 30 feet tall. It's called The Sound of Flight. It's kind of hard to visualize without standing right here, but it's primarily where we are. It's a tremendous number of birds flying out of a piano that has some disembodied hands playing it. It's unbelievable what's on this mural. If we travel down, you have everything from the Grand Canyon in here to the Thinker to the very famous statue of David. If you see David there, the city was a little concerned about the
fallacies.
Yeah, and so you'll see there that the artist actually put a wood pecker over that area on David. And it really is a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. And I think Flagstaff has one of the most vibrant art scenes in the country. The murals, obviously, are beautiful here in Flagstaff and very well received. And then the music kind of runs that same vein.
So this is exciting. We are at the Orpheum Theatre, downtown Flagstaff. We can walk?
Yes, we can walk. Come on along. It's a little bit of a tour around the building.
Scully's excitable and proud. He's a self-proclaimed old deadhead, originally from upstate New York, who's wearing a sporty winter coat and has a very long ponytail. Together with his partner Charles Smith, Scott the engineer, and Eric Teeter the carpenter, plus his management team of Susan, Bob, and Michelle, they've put on thousands of shows and have spent lots and lots of time remodeling and updating the venue.
Now, the Orpheum Theatre started as a multi-use facility, some vaudeville, live plays, and film when it began, but really the Orpheum kind of settled into being the movie house for Flagstaff for much of the last 100 years. We are still a multi-use venue. I mean, everything from our St. Patrick's Day here, our community film nights, our annual adult prom, which is, an institution in itself. 800 people a year dress up to come to our adult prom, our Big Lebowski nights. But most of our stuff is live music and concerts. We've done over 2,000 performances, 2,000 concerts at the Orpheum. We did 300 events last year. Over 100 of those were concerts. And we also have church on Sunday morning. So, we run the gamut here. When I started the Orpheum, the few people I knew in the industry that I went to, and I said, hey, I have a theater that's, 1,000 capacity theater. I want to open it in a town of 60,000 people. They said, you're crazy. But the culture of Flagstaff is such that I kind of knew that we would be able to pull this off because, people here really, appreciate music, appreciate culture, appreciate community. Not to mention we have a substantial university here with a lot of students that want to come out and, do something on an evening. So that led to, the idea that, hey, this could work.
From the parking lot, we walk around to the front of the building. How would you describe the architecture?
Well, kind of a classic 40s, 50s theater, and this facade was put on around the 50s. You've got we've got our iconic marquee. If you've been to Flagstaff, you've seen the Orpheum marquee, the big red and yellow vertical marquee. It's a genuine neon marquee. It's a great old theater. It started well before Route 66 in the 1800s, 1890s or so, when the Beale Wagon Road came through, which eventually became Route 66. The original building was called the Majestic Theater. It was built right around the turn of the century. That building actually collapsed in the biggest snowstorm that ever hit Flagstaff. It was New Year's Eve, 1915, 1916. They had over 5 feet of snow in town. The legend has it that the maintenance guy thought that it would be a good idea to spray water on the snow to get it off of the building. John Weatherford, the gentleman who built the Weatherford Hotel, which is immediately adjacent to us here, and they say that he actually went into the rubble, pulled his projectors out of the rubble, and started work on building what is now the location of the Orpheum Theatre. If you go kind of over to the main entrance of the building, what you're going to see is our old box office, a single window box office with a little half moon pass through where we would be able to pass tickets through. And let me tell you, when you sell 1,000 tickets, this was not terribly effective for getting people into the building. And so just a few years ago, we upgraded that whole thing and we took this whole other side of the building, which would be the east side of the building, and we opened this up to create a whole different box office space. And so as you can see, this box office is just a lot more usable and user-friendly, and it helps us get people serviced faster and in the door faster. When it's sub-zero temperatures, which we get to in Flagstaff, people want to come in. So we do our best to get them in the door. So let's go in the theater.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Come on in. You're in our entryway. This is where people kind of line up. This is our merch area. This is where we sell t-shirts and hats and all that stuff for when the bands come in. We'll come back here. You'll see our concessions area. And we have everything from pizza to cookies to ice cream. I won't bother you by taking you through the bathrooms, but we did do some pretty serious renovations to the bathrooms over the last few years. So you're in the main lobby of the Orpheum. You can see kind of the beginning of kind of our wall of fame here. See here, George Clinton, Los Lobos, Meat Puppets, Tribal Seeds, J.J. Cale, Little Feat, Robbie Krieg, Lucinda Williams, Robert Cray, Tyler the Creator, Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead. These are just some of the people that have been in this venue over the last few years. So we've been pretty fortunate to bring in some pretty high caliber talent here.
Scully's personal favorite was J.J. Cale.
And as it turned out, it was the last show of the last tour he ever did. And so to have him on the stage, there was some he did a documentary called To Tulsa and Back. The film opens up with him walking out on stage at the Orpheum. And that just, and it wasn't his best performance. It wasn't even sold out night. It's just the show that meant a lot to me.
Then, at long last, you're inside the main room.
Wow, my first reaction when walking into this place is how high the ceilings are. Yeah. You truly feel as if you're walking into a space.
And I think that that's really enhances your concert experience as well. I mean, I can't tell you how many, I've been to many concerts, and, when you go into a place that has a 10, 12-foot ceiling and they're trying to throw lights onto the lid, and it doesn't have that same effect as when you have a 30-foot lid like we do here. And that's really a huge part of what makes, any venue that much more magnificent, is just you want that effect.
From the outside, you have no sense of how big the ceiling is. So it's a really cool surprise for first-time visitors.
And if you walk in mid-show and there's, we've got a bunch of our moving lights going, because we have a very extensive lighting rig here.
Beautiful.
Really,
I was blown away.
That highlights exactly what you're talking about.
You got your disco ball?
Yep. It's a good disco ball. That was our first lighting effect.
It's like, I don't even know how you get up there.
You don't get up there. It's a matter of ropes and some certain techniques to get that stuff in the air. But yeah, we've had to learn some tricks over the years. Next time you come back, I'll bring you in the attic and you can see how it all works.
I've explored a lot of music venues, but I've never seen this cool detail before. As we're walking down the ramp onto the main floor, I noticed rows and rows of jacket hooks, hundreds of them, strategically placed for all the winter coats. It gave off the appearance of like an adult nursery school or something. And for a venue that has thought of everything, they've even thought of the coats who have been left behind by people who might have overindulged.
We have a cycle of, okay, this is this month's lost and found. We check it for a month and we bring it all to the Goodwill or because we go through tons of that kind of stuff. But yes, people need to wear jackets here, and we do have a coat check, but if you can get a hook, of course, it's at your own risk. But we don't have a lot of issues with that. Honestly, what happens typically is people maybe overindulge a little bit and then put on the wrong coat.
We meander around the floor, and then Chris points out the projection booth that was used in the early 1900s when the theater was a movie house. And the moment reminds him of a pretty wild story that happened during a Keller Williams concert.
So what happened was this one overambitious young lady got into the projection booth, which is up there in the balcony, and got up on a ladder into the attic. And she crossed the entire attic, which is it's over 100 feet across the attic, and crawled down this scary as hell 30-foot vertical ladder. And she comes walking through the back room of the green room and covered in what Keller Williams called attic swag. And I walk up to this girl, and she's got these her eyes are, I don't know why, her eyes are just huge, and she's looking at me. And I just look at her and go, where the hell did you come from? Now I'm freaked out, like, who else is in the attic, right? And so I've got to go up in the attic with all my security staff and flashlights, and we're cruising around the attic looking for, other patrons that might have tried to cut across there. We didn't find any other ones, but that was a pretty crazy story.
Before the Orpheum went under renovations, if it wasn't situations like a lost Keller Williams fan, then it was issues with bands being super electric.
When I came here, there was 100 amp service on this building. I've put two 200 amp service and a 400 amp service on this building since I've been in here, and we still blow. I think Umphrey's McGee blew one of the main breakers. It wasn't even a breaker, it was like a serious fuse that they blew out. So everything else in the building shut down, including the lighting rig. The emergency lights came on. We went to a cash bar, but the sound kept going. And so we played through it.
Whoa! Umphrey's McGee literally raged so hard that they blew out the electricity.
That was exactly what happened, yes.
Yes, that is rock and roll.
And the show went on. It's a legendary night at the Orpheum. I hear about it still to this day.
We visit the elevated sound booth, which is like the cockpit of a concert production. Here's where you'll find lighting designers, sound engineers, and more crew members piloting all the effects.
You get some haze going, you get some lights going, you get some quality sound going. Now you got a concert.
100%.
We can kind of start heading to the green room.
We walk on to the gorgeous stage.
I love the details in the wood here on the stage. It's like very, very old wood.
Proscenium. Yeah, and the proscenium is actually local wood, and it's a combination of 2x4s turned on their side, and it creates kind of a in and out effect. This curtain pulls back, so you can see that. That's my 400 amp service. There's the two 200 amp services. So, things people don't really appreciate until the lights go out.
We're stepping into the green room.
Yeah, so this is the green room. This is actually more of a hospitality space. So if we're going to set up food for them, it's going to be here. This back area here is really more of a dressing room and a private space for the artists.
There are no bands on the bill tonight, but there is someone in here hanging out, and it's not who you think it is.
What is it like sitting in this room, just knowing how many artists have sat here?
Yeah, it's pretty cool to sit here.
It's the general manager's daughter.
Yeah, I like to practice my instruments here.
What's your favorite show you've been to?
Probably Elephant Revival.
Very cool.
The backstage area is equipped with an office space.
A lot of tour managers have sat right here and done a lot of work.
And also a shower.
This is critical, like to have a shower in a venue. When guys come off the road on a bus, they want a shower. So, once again, it seems like a little thing, but it's important.
Design-wise, the main hangout area has some funky tapestries hung up, which Chris tells me he picked up on his travels and also from
secondhand stores and stuff like that. It'll find its way into the green, like the tiger on the crazy table kind of thing.
Speaking of crazy,
there have been some crazy stories over the years, and frankly, every night is another crazy story at the Orpheum Theatre.
He doesn't elaborate too much. Instead, he tells me how every night their main priority is kindness and
personal relationships, and how you treat a band and how you present yourself as an organization, as the Orpheum, and how they feel like when they come here. Some days it doesn't feel like that makes a damn bit of difference, but in the long run, I think it makes a big difference. I think that the bands do have some say, and that, people that are in bands that, ultimately step up into management or step up into being an agent or something like that. There is that kind of residual, oh yeah, I've been to that club. Those people are, they treated us well.
And do you stop to take stock being part of such a rich history of entertainment?
I've had many a 3 o'clock in the morning shut down here where all the lights are off, and you kind of think back on the history of the building and, the history of the community. And at times I will stop and really reflect on what we've done here as an organization and, what this building has been through historically. The Orpheum, I would tell you, was the centerpiece of entertainment for Flagstaff and continues to be. So now for over 100 years. You're a fool if you think you're doing it by yourself. You got to have people participating, and one of my biggest jobs is to thank people for coming to the Orpheum Theatre. I thank everybody that's come, whether you're a performer or a patron, because we wouldn't be here without you.
Up next, we head back to the Hotel Monte Vista for some ghost stories. Lindsay and I are seated on a brown leather couch, which is in a little nook located just around the corner from the Monte, which is the hotel's cocktail bar and music venue.
And I think it's cool, like this room especially. I love sitting in this little.
Oh, this is my favorite when the bars are super full, because I hate trying to yell over people to have a conversation. So I always hide up here. And just look at people weird when they come in and out of the bathroom. It's great.
She usually works the morning shift here.
I'm in charge of assigning the rooms, and it's really fun, kind of a fun puzzle every day to try and accommodate everyone's requests that they might have, whether someone's extending a stay or wants to try a different room, and then, really just trying to make people super stoked and trying to go above and beyond. And it's so behind the scenes. People probably don't even realize how much thought goes into it, but we really do our best to accommodate all these requests and just giving it little thoughts like that.
And another big part of her job is
telling ghost stories, and they're not all totally PG. So oftentimes I have children coming up to the desk and I'm like, how do I tell you that someone robbed a bank and was, shot and then died having his last glass of whiskey in the lounge, or that some, old lady passed away and still rocks in her chair. And yeah.
She starts with one from room 210. the Zane Grey Room.
Definitely the weirdest thing I've heard from that particular room is some folks checked in and they came down and, they were really nice but a little confused. They were like, I think, maybe the housekeepers didn't quite finish up in the room. I don't know, it was kind of weird. So we were like, no, the housekeepers left, everything's good. We had actually the management of housekeeping in that particular room, so we know for sure she would have finished up the job and told us the room was ready to check in when it was. And so the gal at the front desk went upstairs to see what was going on, and all of the furniture in the room was pushed up against one wall. But it's happened twice now where a dresser was pushed up against the door and housekeepers had to crawl in through the window to service the room.
Then she tells me about room 220, which is
the meat man room. That room totally spooks me out more than any other one. And they say 305 with the rocking chair is the most haunted, but if you ask a lot of people that work here, they say nope, 220 is. So they call it the meat man room. It was one of the long-term residents back when the hotel was pretty new. So it wasn't like today when, we have housekeeping and people going in and out of the rooms frequently. This guy lived here, so he wasn't found dead until a couple days after he had a heart attack and passed away in there. And I don't really know anything about the fellow except for he would like to hang raw meat from the chandelier in the room. The front desk manager, we were exchanging stories one day, and she said that a pretty frequent occurrence was guests saying that there might be a leak or something, because people pretty often would experience dripping, like water was dripping on them or something while they slept in 220. And I just know it's probably just phantom meat juice. But yeah, not to, and it's also like 10 degrees colder when you go into that room instantly. So it just brings like a meat freezer to mind, like you're walking into a walk-in fridge or something. It's just freaky.
Listening back to this while I edit is giving me goosebumps. Are you getting the chills? I'm totally getting the chills.
We had a psychic lady that was here and didn't even know the hotel was haunted, and she was apparently very in tune and confirmed pretty much all of our ghost stories. And she said, everyone's just having a good time. Everyone's still here. And, some people avoid, there's a gal in 306 that avoids the bank robbers down in the lounge. But, overall, everyone's just partying and hanging out. So I would not mind being here at all if that's what the afterlife's about.
Me neither, Lindsay. Me neither. On this long stop off Route 66, I really enjoyed my stay. Seeing concerts around town, staying cozy in my hotel room, Flagstaff is where it's at. And while I never encountered any ghosts, I felt a kinship with all those who stayed before me, and this is exactly how I feel when I'm at music venues, connecting with the spirits of generations of people who have stood before me in the very same place, under the very same roof, all of us witnessing great moments in music. When I check out of the hotel, I'm a little sad because Lindsay's not around for me to say goodbye to. A maid who overhears me asking for her says, "Lindsay? You mean the front desk clerk who worked here 100 years ago?"
If you check in and you see some really pale, scary, red-eyed looking girl, that might be me.
This has been a Good to Go Studios production created and produced by yours truly, me, Kyle Lamont. My co-writer and co-producer for this episode is Jim Piccarello. He also edited and engineered this episode too. Type in concertcast.live to learn more about Flagstaff, and don't forget to tell your favorite concert buddy about our show. Special thanks to Heidi Stanton-Drew, Chris Scully, Lindsay Kaufman, and to the staff members at the Orpheum Theatre and Hotel Monte Vista. And thank you for listening.